You are now live with Dylan Kimlin.
Hello everyone, Dylan Kimlin here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's morning here at my place, and I've just woken up and had a burst of inspiration to quickly dive into another video for you all. Hence why the throat probably sounds a little bit deeper than usual. Hopefully you at home are okay with it. But my episode today, and the reason for, I guess, the inspiration to jump into it is this is a pretty deep topic for me. And it's anyone at home that has ever considered starting a business, whether you are someone who wants to be a coach, you want to sell equipment, maybe you want to run a venue, just anyone, schools, someone that wants to get involved within pickleball at some level, this is an episode for you. Doesn't matter your age, skill level. This is more about whether you want to make, financial gain from pickleball. I pioneered broadcasting and media for Australian Pickleball way back, and now it's its own industry. So, we see the pro leagues all the time having broadcasts and lots of media. Social media presence is everywhere. So believe me when I say this is a topic that definitely resonates deeply with me, as I've done the hard yards. And hopefully, I'm not a business expert. I'm not, you go to uni for that sort of stuff. But hopefully I can just provide you a bit of an insight if you at home are someone that's considering doing this to, just prepare yourself a little bit, because there are a lot of pros and cons to it. Before we dive into it, another particular business type is clothing. And my t-shirt time for today is Salty Dinks. So these guys, there we go. I'm doing reverse view. There we go. Salty Dinks are a Sunshine Coast brand that are relatively new within Australian Pickleball, I'd say. And they have quickly became, they're quite popular. Going for like surfy sort of vibes, I guess. They do have a wide variety of different designs. Personally, I like they do like a Billabong Mambo sort of style. I like that because I'm a 90s kid. It resonates with me, with what I grew up with. But, I'm very excited to see another group, try. That's all we can do is try. And they are, they're at a lot of tournaments. I'm doing the Australian Masters this weekend. I believe they're going to that. Actually, when I release this, that'll be last weekend because this is going forward a week. But, definitely give them a look. And I'm all about, anyone that's worked with me will tell you that I'm all about getting behind people that want to give it a go. I've taught so many people commentary. I've worked alongside broadcasters and media, photographers, videographers, paddle companies, t-shirt groups, people that just want to start venues. I'm in constant discussion with venues, net providers, people that want to make balls, all sorts. And I think it's something that if you at home are someone that's really starting to consider it, give it a go. But first, have a look at this video. And of course, please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Additionally, give the social medias a follow, as the social media pages are slowly getting more and more popular. Just getting the news out to you all it's good. I enjoy doing it. So before we dive into the crux of running the business, it's probably best if I give you a little bit about a history of me and sort of where I'm from. And I think this is important because you at home, you need to understand where you are currently before you dive into this. Because I definitely made some mistakes, and that you most likely will as well, but learning from them is essential. So I started playing pickleball. I still don't know the exact date. It was either 2018 or 2019, one of those. So that makes me a relic compared to most other players. At that point in time, I would say there was less than 100 people playing. I learnt under Jen Rammer-Murphy, she taught me how to play at Albion Indoor Sports Centre in Brisbane. Shout out to Peter and the team at Albion. I've always got a soft spot for those guys. And at that point in time, there weren't many people playing. So there were a couple notable names that you might know. Mark Jagger, who's current president of Brisbane Pickleball Club. Leanne Griffin, superstar she is. Arn Trong, Vin and Arn. Those two. Actually, Arn's a Huynh now, isn't she? Yeah, Arn, Huynh. Sorry, Arn, if I'm mucking your name up. Have I got that right? Anyway, so Arn's now an official for PPA Asia. So she's gone overseas refereeing over there, which is incredible. So proud of Arn. And Vin has made a business out of going out and doing tape and lining for all the courts. And it's awesome to see at the early days, people stuck with it. Jen, as I said, she went from president of Brisbane to president of PAQ to president of Pickleball Australia. And it just shows that if you are genuinely determined, you can make it work. Now, at that point in time, I was working like a 9 to 5. So I think I was either a Aboriginal ambassador at that point in time as a trainer and assessor. So I'd go around the country teaching people, which relevant because we will talk about transferable skills from what you're currently doing. So for me, I literally coach people professionally in the vet sector. So teaching Cert 3s and diplomas. That was relevant later when I became a coach because understanding learning styles is essential. I was either doing that or I was working in social work. So there's a suburb in Brisbane called Inala that I worked in assisting young homeless people, which, once again, transferable skills. I'm never someone, especially like I get asked this all the time, working in media, you've got thousands of people watching me. Do I get stressed? Do I get worried? And my response to that is no, like never, because I've worked in a situation where lives are on the line. If someone's not about to die, to me, it's not a stressful situation. And once again, those transferable skills, they come in effect later. They might not be relevant, like social work. Who thought they would be relevant to commentary? But it definitely helps later on. So you at home might have already had some careers that you think's not even relevant to pickleball. Believe me, it will help later on in ways you probably don't expect. So whichever job I was doing at that point in time, I slowly made the transition. I'm pretty sure it was social work now I think about it. I slowly made the transition to starting to commentate. And that occurred when I was at a pickleball tournament in Queensland and I was playing. I was either tournament directing or I was playing. So at that point in time, I was working in pickleball as well. But I overheard a lady say that she wished I want to say it was one of her grandparents. She wished that one of her grandparents could watch her play, but they were at the nursing home in bed, so they couldn't go anywhere. And I thought about it. I was like, you know what? She's right. Like, why aren't we broadcasting this? Why aren't we streaming this? And suddenly, this is where business Dylan kicked in, I realized that there was a niche market in that there was a service that was required. No one was providing for that service. And this was 5-6 years ago. Now, some people who are super salty, shout out Salty Dinks, have said the only reason I made it is because there was no one else doing it at that point in time. But the point is that I'm trying to make it to you at home is understanding that there is a market. It takes bravery to be able to dive into something that no one else is doing. Okay, try to be unique is always the one thing I'm going to say. Now, I've talked to plenty of other commentators around the country, and they're like, Dylan, you've done it the hard way, but you've established yourself because you've done it the hard way. This, once again, coming down to pressure situations, they don't matter to me because I've dived in and just gave it a shot and it's worked. So I was working 9 to 5. And at that point in time, so I would work with homeless kids and then I would either tournament direct. So I directed quite a few tournaments around Brisbane. or I would start commentating events. So the first event I did was Queensland Pickleball Champs with Gordon Watson, shout out Gordy. And we also had a couple of guest speakers like Mark Renison from Selkirk TV. He jumped in and gave some pointers as well. And all I did was I just went and bought a cheap podcast microphone, like a shotgun mic. I can probably even grab it, actually. It's not a bad idea. Just a Shure MV7, just a little podcast mic. And I already had a phone. So I bought like a little tiny, like a tripod. And keep in mind, viewers, I had no experience. I don't have a degree. I had no commentary experience because who teaches commentary? And I had no broadcasting experience. I literally just aimed a camera and with a microphone and, just a slight knowledge of pickleball, I started a business. And you at home, you probably have a little bit more knowledge about what you're considering jumping into than I did. Started commentating. We did QPC. It was crazy. It rained nonstop. It was just a mental event. And there were positives from it. And namely, people were coming up to me saying, Dylan, can you please keep doing this? Now, at that point in time, it was just fun. I had never dreamed that I would have a business from this. And even today, I look back and it's surreal. I'm like, wow, this has actually happened. And yeah, it's just weird thinking about it now. And slowly what happened was I would work my 9 to 5 and then go and commentate every weekend. Now, we will get into some topics on this, but the main thing I want you at home to understand is you need to be willing to put in the time. Now, I make no bones about it. When I commentate events now, I typically dedicate between 14 to 16 hour days. You at home don't have to do that much because commentary I guess it's its own little time requirement, whereas you can dedicate as much as you think suitable. But the point is, the task that was required needed this much time, and now it's the norm for me, so I can dive in. The transition from a 9 to 5 to running your own business is a tricky one, viewers. And the one thing I really need to make clear to you at home is that it's not immediate. Okay. So if you're at a 9 to 5 right now and you either don't like it or you want to change, you can't expect it to just be, it's going to happen now. For me, I worked a year doing voluntary broadcasts. So once again, work a 9 to 5 and then I would go and commentate around the country. Don't mind me, still waking up. There's my coffee. By the way, that's an Australian Pickleball Championships cup. I don't know how many people have got those, but that's Tony Morgan from Newcastle was selling those at one of the tournaments and I bought them. So, well, another legend of the scene. But, and yeah, I wasn't earning much money. And this is something that I think you at home need to understand, is that the money, until you're established, doesn't come in. Okay? You won't... How do I word it? It's more about building a profile. So and word of mouth is so important in the early stages. So if you're someone who is, a well-liked figure, if you're someone who is known for just giving a good deal, if you're someone who is, you're trustworthy. Now turn on the aircon, don't mind the beep. It's rather warm here in Brisbane. Then as such, you will have success. Okay, but the first year was more about building a profile. So started building up my social media platforms, started getting word of mouth out there, and I was incessant. So every year I contact every state body. I contact every tournament that I can to see if they want things broadcasted. Now, for you at home, if you're selling a paddle, if you're a coach looking to do coaching clinics, I'd be doing the same, but relevant to your product. Okay. And over time, the whole squeaky mouse gets the cheese. Eventually, it worked out. The problem was the sacrifices that were made along the way. And I understand this episode is a little bit more of a rambly one, because I'm quite literally telling you my career story. So strap yourselves in because we're getting deep. I have lost so much to do this business, and I really want to stress that for you at home. You think about me starting a pickleball business, commentating. So already commentary is a super niche field in pickleball, which had at that point in time, when I started, there would have been, 2,000 people in the country playing, something like that. My friends thought I was nuts. They straight up told me, Dylan, this is a bad decision. Don't do this. It's a bad idea. My partner at the time didn't think it was good. And, I'm now 32. And you can't give up on a dream. It's probably the most important thing. There's so many people that I've realized they get through their 20s and suddenly they become content with mediocrity. I had become content with mediocrity. My entire 20s, I've realized, have been wasted. I worked a normal job. I played pickleball at an average level. I never made a big difference in the world. Now, in social work and in, my roles traveling around teaching people, I definitely made a difference to individual people. And I guess you at home, it's like, what do you value as a person? What's your life achievements? What do you consider worthy? I realized that at the age of 30, when I split with my ex, that I wanted to dive into commentary full time. And believe me when I say it was the best decision I ever made, because I realized that I completely lost purpose but in my 20s, which is crazy because 20s are like your prime. I disagree. My prime is now. It's 100% the case. Healthiest I've ever been, playing so many sports, and my commentary career is booming. The point I'm making is whatever your age may be at home, it's irrelevant. Okay. You need to put the effort in because in 2 years from now, you might be very successful. Okay. And don't ever lose hope. Don't ever listen to the haters or the people that doubt you. As I mentioned, I've lost so many friends. I've lost my ex, and my business was definitely a part of this. But, shedding away some of the negativity from your life can be very healthy. So that's probably the first little sacrifice that you at home need to be aware of before you dive into this. And, hopefully it does work out for you. But always reflect upon where you're at now and what you've lost along the way, because you can use that as inspiration. I did. It definitely drove me to be better. And, here I am today. The other negative or the other sacrifice is probably a left field one that you are probably not expecting. And that is burnout. So continuing my career history here for you all. When I was commentating quite a bit, and I became the president of Morayfield Pickleball Club. So I love that club, love the members to bits. I was the inaugural president, so raised it up from scratch. The club's still going strongly today. And I was playing and coaching pretty much every day and managing a club while commentating and working a 9 to 5. And I didn't realize it at that point in time, but I had already set myself down the trajectory of working within pickleball. I was just building experience. So commentary, I wasn't earning much money, like minimal. And being a president, as anyone will tell you, you lose money. The clubs don't make much money. Obviously, you can do fundraisers, etc. But for me, it was more about the love of the game and building a player base within that community. So I then became director of Ferny Hills, so Pure Pickleball, and a little while after that became director of Focus Pickleball Redcliffe, which is now the number one tournament venue in Australia. So by that time, I had transitioned from a 9 to 5 to full-time working in pickleball. And it's a sidestep to then working as a full-time business owner. 9 to 5 in pickleball, director role is where I realized you can get burnout. You can have too much of a good thing. So don't get me wrong, I love the opportunity that I had there. Chris and Thea and the team, I've always got time for them. I love the juniors that work there. I go down to support as many of the junior events as I can. But you learn that there are some assholes in pickleball. You know, some of the members at Redcliffe today, they're disgusting people. They are just vile people that are retirees. So we're talking about purpose in life. This does not qualify for all the retirees, by the way, but their entire life right now is just bringing negativity into the sport. They don't achieve anything else. And they made, I won't say other staff members because I don't want to bring them into this, but they made the staffing's life hell at that club. And you go from a sport that is known for a very positive community, a very loving group, to dealing with this nonsense with a bunch of people that, and I say this quite a bit now, I find myself being the calm presence in the room with people that are 20 to 30 years older than me. I thought the older you get, the more wise you get. That does not seem to be the case. If anything, the more bitter and jaded you become. So I was playing pickleball every day. I was coaching pickleball every day, and I will get into coaching for you at home, especially if you want to become a coach at a club, because coaching at a club and coaching as yourself is two different things. And commentating every weekend. My entire life suddenly just became pickleball, and I realized I had burnout. If you don't know what burnout is, it's when you do too much of something and you effectively get tired of it. You lose the passion, which is crazy. How could you lose passion for pickleball? But it definitely happened. And I made the decision, something had to go. Of those three things, something had to go. And I stopped playing pickleball. Now, you at home might think, Dylan, that's obscene. The entire reason you got into it was to play pickleball. But I had made that decision by then, after several years now of doing this, that I had transitioned from a 9 to 5 to a business. And as such, I didn't mind if I lost pickleball as a player, because I was no longer working 9 to 5s. I no longer had to worry about my clients dying, Instead, I had grumpy old people. Compare the pair. I think I know which one I would rather. So that was a bitter pill to swallow. And I still get to this day, people come up to me at tournaments all the time and say, Dylan, do you miss playing? And I say, yeah, but that's the sacrifice I made. And you at home need to be so strongly aware of this that you might get burnout, okay? Especially if you're a coach. I think if you're in equipment, it's a little bit different, because like if you're selling a consumable or a perishable, whatever you want to call it, like clothing or equipment, something like that, it's a little bit different because you can still play, like you're not on the court all the time. Whereas when you're coaching, when you're directing, when you're a staff member at a club, or if you're owning a venue, it does consume your whole life. It becomes effectively your personality at that point. So then I moved away from Focus Pickleball Redcliffe purely as a sole trader. So after a little, like a year or so, my commentary demands became too much. And I spoke to Chris about this in length. I was pretty much every weekend booked out. And then I would fly from, let's say, Sydney to Brisbane on a Monday, have because it's a travel day, so I had half a day of sleep. And then I would be back coaching 6 o'clock Tuesday morning. And then that would go all the way until Thursday or Friday, to which I would travel again and commentate. And this was an endless cycle. I realized it was unhealthy, viewers, when I got comfortable with having 4 hours of sleep. Now, that's never a good thing. I realized what the body can take, and I have talked about rock bottom in the past. But understanding, how do I say this without sounding super, not depressing, but take this with a pinch of salt. Okay, this is from my experience. Please don't use it on your own. But I, now, as someone who'd been on rock bottom, I effectively lost everything in my separation to then working full-time in pickleball and these sleeping hours I'm talking about. It was actually really good for me at that point in time, because I could get through everything, just head down, work my tail off, continue to build the business, and now I'm in a place where I can be comfortable. But it required that severe sacrifice. And anyone that ever judges my work ethic, I just laugh at them, because I know I went to absolute extremes to make this business work. And once again, you at home, I'm not saying it's going to be this difficult. Definitely don't go through a separation when starting a business, I'll tell you that. But there are going to be difficulties, okay? Now I'm at a point where, after succumbing all of that, I've got past all of that. It's just, you've reached the light at the end of the tunnel, I suppose. Everything's looking roses. But it required so much effort. And you ingrain habits. You ingrain positive habits, to which I now do daily. Little things like right now, my YouTube channel. It's a habit now that I get videos out at least once or twice a week for you at home. It's a habit now that I do either daily or second daily social media posts for you at home. It's a habit that I'm constantly looking at the current market, and we will talk about market research. It's a habit that I taught myself how to use graphic design tools, video editing tools, and just understanding the general zeitgeist of pickleball at this point in time. And if you're someone who wants to get into a business, these are all things you're going to have to learn. Remember, I had no prior experience. I had no prior qualifications. I just jumped in and taught myself. YouTube's a very amazing tool. You can teach yourself anything. Okay, that'll do for the doom and gloom. But that at least paints a picture of my experience beforehand to now. I'm living the life. Like, I could obviously be earning more money, but I pretty much don't work weekdays. So that's another sacrifice, by the way, viewers. Pickleball tournaments are mainly at weekends. So I went from having the weekdays where I worked, so a 5 to 2, to swapping it. Maybe a 3. I typically work 3 days at a tournament, 3 to 4, and then I have the other days off. So I have more days off than I work at the age of 32. How often do you hear of people in that lifestyle? There are pros to this, big time. I will tell you, and that's what you're working for, especially having a job that you love, because I no longer have burnout. I have got past all of that. I'm comfortable where I'm at, and the business is, I'm so happy I've done it. I can't even begin to describe how happy I am that I've been through all of that. Okay, and hopefully you can find inspiration from this to build into something. And if you do, I wish you the best of luck, truly. So, let's talk about various types of businesses. And one thing I really want to touch on is, to start off, is coaching. So I did a roundtable, and I'm a coach myself. Like I said, president, 2-time director. I've taught hundreds of new players. And I learned immediately that that was my coaching style. As I said earlier, I was a trainer and assessor, and I knew learning styles. I knew how people gained information, and also knew what I enjoyed teaching. I enjoy teaching new players. I genuinely have fun doing it. Some people hate it. I have fun bringing new players in, and that's why I had so much success as a president of a club, because all the new players would come in, I would immediately jump in and teach them all. It's like, come on, guys, let's get into it. Teach 30-odd people in a session, new players, rah. And if you're someone that wants to get into coaching, especially if you want to make a career out of it, you need to understand that there's a high chance you're going to be teaching a lot of new players and whether you enjoy that. I did a roundtable episode recently with George Wall, Joey Wild, Sarah Dennehy, and Nari Nalu, which you can find on this channel, on captaincy and leadership, where George Wall said, basically, the number one need at the moment in Australian pickleball is coaches. We don't have enough coaches. And I agree entirely. So going back to the start of my story, where I realized, oh, there's a market here. I'm giving you a market, viewers. If you're someone that wants to get into coaching, there's a heavy demand for it. And we can see that. We look at all the pro leagues, okay? NPL, MLPA especially, in our team formats, we have, 3 coaches? So you have all of these teams that should have a coach that don't have a coach. Why not? It's purely because of the lack of coaches. So, here you go. I've given you a gift. It's up to you to use it. Additionally, as someone that work in venues, there are a lot of opportunities popping up for venues that are looking for coaching staff, for staff members that want to be involved within pickleball, schools especially. These are jobs to keep an eye out for. And, you might ask yourself, like, how do I get my foot in the door as a coach? I would be reaching out to, you can either do it 2 different ways. You can do the solo route where you just reach out to clients individually. Not my style personally. I went the club route where I actually built up a profile by starting a club. But I'm a bit psychotic like that. But you can always join your local club's committee and offer to do coaching sessions as a host. You can always reach out to your local club and say, hey guys, I'm happy to do the Tuesday night, intermediate session where I'll offer coaching. Can you just, pricing, etc., you and the club need to sort out. But the point I'm making is a lot of this is networking. You need to be willing to reach out to your local community and find out, hey, how do I go about this? And then you start to build a profile. Once again, word of mouth is so important. Just having one client that thinks you do a good job, they're going to go and tell their friends. It's how I started commentary. And from that onwards, that's how you build momentum. Okay, I know it can be a bit daunting to start with, but especially if you want to be a coach, there's so many opportunities. So go and get it. The one thing I do want to bring up on the topic of coaches and on the topic of business, and this is Dylan's, I'm tending to have one little controversial take every video. I don't know, is that a good thing, viewers? Do you like that at home? I know certain people don't. But my one little controversial take in running a business is that pickleball can be cutthroat. Which, once again, you might think, what are you talking about? Like, it's such a wholesome sport. There's so many wonderful people. But I was actually considering doing a content piece, which I haven't fully drawn up yet, on the dark side of pickleball. And I know it's a bit melodramatic. That's why I haven't done it yet. But specifically talking about, as a business owner, there are genuinely people that want to bring me down. There are people that have tried sabotaging my career from day one. There are people that are constantly spreading false information about me. And at this point in time, because of all of my career experience in the past with dealing with high stakes pressure, it's irrelevant to me. I have CEOs or high-level managers of clubs come up to me and say, hey, did you know this is happening? And it's like, yeah, but once again, if I talk about the members that we had at Redcliffe, that there's only a certain couple of them, they're irrelevant. At the long and short of it, for you and your business, they're irrelevant. But there's a quote, or rather something I learned early on in my career, is to never check YouTube chat when I'm live streaming. And I do it sometimes. It's a naughty. I shouldn't do it. But the reason is I might have 1,000 positive comments in the chat, cheering on players or cheering on me, cheering on my co-commentators, whatever. But there'll be one negative. Like, oh, Dylan, you suck. Like, what are you doing? And rather than focus on all of the 1,000 positive comments, I'll focus on that one negative. And this is probably one of the biggest learning moments you as a business owner are going to have. You need to ignore the negative. It's going to be very hard because you'll feel like it's a personal slight on you. It's going to be someone's attacking you personally. But you got to remember to look at the positive, look at the 1,000 positive compliments, because they are the reason why you do what you do. And that one person, what are they achieving with their life? Honestly, they're on a social media platform talking down about someone. If you get that in your head, it'll make your career so much easier. But it can be cutthroat. You can have people that are going to try and bring you down. Crabs in a bucket, you know the whole saying. Additionally, you're going to have people in the same industry try to bring you down. So if you are a paddle company, I mean, geez, over the history of Australian Pickleball, which isn't that long, we've had so many disputes over paddles. I'm not going to go into detail on it all. I'm sure if you have Google, you can find out all this information. But there are so many examples of legal battles or disputes happening over paddle companies. If you're someone that wants to get into the paddle space, be wary. That's all I'm going to say. You're going to have problems with sponsoring tournaments. You're going to realize you might chuck however much into a tournament and then realize, and this is not all tournament providers, you're going to realize that some tournament providers just don't care. They just gladly take your money. They don't actually give you anything back. That's why I break myself as a broadcaster trying to pump as much promotional material as I can for our sponsors, because I understand they are quite literally giving their money for the sport. You're also going to have people try and, well, there's going to be a lot of rumors about your brand, about you as a coach, about you as a sole trader. I can give genuine input here as a commentator. To this day, I still have people try and take my roles as commentator. It's happened many times where an organization either doesn't want to pay or is willing to pay basically nothing, and other people just come and pinch your spot because they're content with earning nothing. They're back 4 years ago, like I said, when you've got to build a profile. They're in that stage and they will take your spot. Now, am I bitter about this? No. Maybe 10% because I literally have taught all these people. But at the same time, I understand where they're coming from. They're trying to build a profile. They're trying to build something. And you at home, I always try to see the perspective of someone else before I, get grumpy. But these things will happen. And to not, get too worked out from it all. Okay. Couple more tips before we wrap it up. This has just been Dylan rambling for the past 40 minutes. Hopefully you've gleaned something from it. One thing that's really important is understanding market research. So if you are wanting to be a coach, any of the jobs, any of the things I've just mentioned, actually, any of the roles, you need to understand what else is happening in your area. So because the difference of, and I'll use this as a director, I'll use my examples at Redcliffe, okay? So we had our little region of players, like a pool that would come into our region. And we had a couple of other clubs in the area. I mean, I mentioned Morayfield. I was president of Morayfield and Ferny Hills. Both of them are in the Moreton Bay. Well, I mean, technically, Ferny Hills is the Moreton Shire, a different region. But anyway, they are all within the same council region. So as such, they're going to pull players. If you're someone that wants to start a venue, you need to be aware of this. If you're someone that wants to be a coach for a club, you need to be aware of this. And especially coaches, you might need to hop around to different venues. This is all stuff you need to learn about. I think also understanding the timing of what you want to do. And the New Zealand Open that's coming up, it will still be coming up when I release this video, is the week before the Australian Pickleball Championships. It's a great example. I've suggested to NZ in the past to not do it at this time slot because APC is going to draw a whole bunch of customers away from New Zealand. I reckon if NZ went back 6 months, if they could, of course, I know they probably have venue requirements, and then you have NZ at 6 months back, and then APC whenever they want to do it, October, then you'll have players come to both. You won't steal customers from each other. And you at home need to be aware of that. If you're trying to do a coaching clinic at the same time as a big tournament in the same city, you might not get anyone come. Or you try and collaborate with that tournament. If you're a paddle company that's trying to, do a brand new opening at a tournament, but at the same time you're going to a tournament that only has like 100 players compared to a tournament down the road that has 500. It's market research. It's basic business. And you at home, this is something like I've got a wall calendar up here next to me that has every single event on at all times that's relevant to me. And so as such, I know to form my social media stuff, I know how to form my videos, I know how to form my commentary revolving around the schedule of Australian Pickleball. And you at home, this is probably a good habit you can build into. Final little tip I'm going to give you guys is your social media. It's so important. Now, when I first started, I had a whole boomer moment where I thought it was irrelevant. And I'm not someone who posts for, dopamine, where you're like, oh, I feel good. I had so many likes or whatever. I don't care about that. For me, it's more about this is a side benefit to benefit my business. Okay. I've found in the past, I don't use TikTok. I think that's too young of a demographic for Australian Pickleball, as the median of Australian Pickleball, I believe, is about 50 years old, 45 to 50, something like that. Once again, market research viewers. And so as such, I had a look at what social media platforms are being used by our highest age groups. Now, the big age groups at the moment that I've gleaned are the, 25 to 40-year-old demographic and the 50 plus. So what social media platforms do they use? Because if I'm promoting my product, I need to know, which social media platforms are the clientele using. And for the 25 to 30s, 25 to 40s is Instagram. For 50 plus is Facebook. Easy. And they're both on Meta. So it's actually super easy. You do a post on Insta and it will jump across straight away to Facebook. It's super simple. These are things that you at home need to learn, especially if you want to, I see some people that just focus on, especially our younger coaches, just focus on Insta. And you're actually just harming your business, straight up. You need to understand cross-platforming is important. I have 3 right now. I've got YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. And as such, I'm targeting so many different markets. My YouTube, for instance, goes to a lot of international viewers. So I'm getting opportunities popping up from other countries because of this. Instagram's going to that younger demographic that they might use the clips for highlight reels. They might use the clips for promotional stuff, which is, once again, sharing awareness. I've got jobs from my Instagram pages in other sports. I've been really reaching out into other sports recently as a result of this. And Facebook, finally, is more informative. So when I do posts talking about, hey, I've got a broadcast coming up at such and such club, these are the dates that you can find it, these are the time slots, that I'm getting so many people appreciate that and sharing that information to the older demographic, because they might not necessarily be able to play an event, but they will watch an event. And that is probably the biggest tip I can leave before we close out this video, viewers, is understanding who is actually going to pay for your product. Okay? There's a harsh reality that you learn as a business in that pros don't pay for anything. They expect everything for free. So You might sponsor a few pros, whatever. Consider that a loss leader. If they do their job properly and promote your product, you might gain more than you've lost. But the demographics that are going to make your business a profit are your older demographics because they have more revenue. Okay, so that is why we're seeing a big push at the moment with tournaments in Australian Pickleball for the older demographics. You know, we saw the All-Stars. It's a league that's just started. We see the Aussie Masters. We see Grand Slam, all targeting these older demographics. The MLPA Masters has been a big hit. Those guys have played very well. Challenger, which is targeting a different demographic, but it does include some of the older demographics, has been so successful. Minor league. You know, I was recently down at Tennyson to watch the minor league. That was a great event. The point I'm making is sometimes we can get lost in the glitz and the glam of the pro players. But as I've said many times in the past, there are only 30 to 40 players in the entire percentile of Australian Pickleball. Look at where the big numbers are. Go for the 95%. Start doing some market research. You will find out who your target audience is. I'm going to wrap this up. This was a big ramble. Hopefully it's been beneficial for you at home. But I do think this is an element of our sport that more and more businesses are going to get into it. We desperately need more coaches. And please, I really look forward to seeing how your journey goes. Send us a message. If you see me at a tournament, come and let me know how you're doing. Because these are things that we're all learning from each other. And I think the more businesses within Australian Pickleball, it's just better for us all. As I mentioned, please like, share, subscribe if you haven't yet. And I just really look forward to seeing how your business journey kicks off or is currently going if you're in the middle of it. So thank you and have a good day.